Every single person in this world always have negative thoughts on life. Some people suffer from being alone, or some may suffer from physical or mental pain. I know all the pain that a person goes through with being alone and suffering through depression. Almost every day of my life from the age of 7, and I'm currently at the age of 22, and still alone and suffering. Sometimes I ask myself what it is that's keeping me going today. And it has took a while till I found that answer. And I'll tell you what that answer is. And that is hope of someday finding happiness for the rest of my life. Let me tell you the story of the heavy depression that I went through in my life, to the point of life where I went through big changes that I've gone through that give me hope. The reason why I share this story is that I hope that this would reach out to a lot of people that have been through the same suffering that I've been through. So far, my story has reached out and saved people's lives from depression and from hurting themselves. I have helped over 50 friends with depression, and helped 10 friends with thoughts of death, and helped 4 friends from hurting themselves. This story contains just about anything that a person would go through in life, such as being judged harshly, being bullied, being alone, and suffering from a broken heart. Also, I'll share to you how my life has changed, what has made me become this good, caring person that I am today. So here's the story about my life, the life and hope of a gay story writer. Let's start the story when I was at such a young age, at the age of 7. And I didn't really have many friends at the time because I was too shy of a person to make friends. At this time of my life, my older brother, which was at the age of 13 at the time, he abused me a lot, every day, whenever he had a chance. The kind of abuse started out as what normal brothers would go through, such as wrestling and arguing with one another. But not too long after, things have gotten worse. My brother started to drink, smoke, and started to do drugs at that young of an age. And he hanged out with the wrong kind of friends. There are 2 very big incidents that have happened that really brought the negative side out of me. One incident was when my brother came home with his friends, and I was there outside at the doorstep. My brother came over to me, threw me down on the ground, and I got up, and I was about ready to go inside the house to get away from him. My brother grabbed me and held me from behind, and he dragged me over to my parents' car and pushed me onto the hood of a car. My uncle, who was there at the time, came outside and said, "Don't do that to the car." When he said that, it didn't even look like that he had much concern about me at all. My brother took me off the car and said to one of his friends to punch me in the stomach, and they did just that. Then my brother threw me down on the ground again, and him and his friends started to kick me in the ribs and in the back. I couldn't get up and leave because I was surrounded with him and his friends, and I just stood there taking the hits. My brother's girlfriend came over and saw what was happening, and she said to him to leave me alone and let me go inside the house and cry. My brother stopped, and I stood there being intimidated from what I had heard. My brother looked down at me and started to count down and was saying that I had better leave. He was counting down from 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5. I couldn't take any more and got up and ran inside and went straight into the bathroom and locked the door. And I was standing there and noticed something. I noticed I couldn't breathe and I was gasping for air. It felt like several minutes had gone past, and then I started to breathe again from a giant breath of air, and I was in tears. Another big incident that happened to me was at midnight. I was asleep on the couch in the living room, and my brother came home drunk. He came close to me. He was staring at my face and started to laugh and had woke me up, and he showed me this blade in his hand. I got up and I was heading towards my bedroom just to get away from him, and my brother followed me from behind and was raving around that blade in his hand. I saw the blade and was walking backwards, so that way the blade wouldn't hit me. Then he backed me up against the wall in a corner, still waving that blade around, and my wrist got in the way and it got cut. And I screamed out loud from the pain that I have gone through. And then my parents came out of their room and only yelled at my brother for bugging me. I showed my mom my wrist that was cut, and nothing was said to me. She didn't ask if I was alright. She acted like it was nothing. It was like she didn't believe me. Then it made me feel alone and scared. I soon was afraid to be at home. I was afraid of my brother. Just from that abuse, being scared, and the thought of being alone caused me to think of death at the age of 7. The words that I remember saying to myself was, I was born alone, and I will die alone. When I had wrote that part of the story, when I had made this online, still that part of the story affects me. 3 years later, at the age of 10, I was still going through the abuse from my brother, and still was afraid to be at home. Usually that kind of abuse on a person, and also with the feeling of being alone, can change a person to being darker and more negative, and may affect other people that surrounds them. At the age of 10, I started 6th grade, and that's when I started to make the bad decisions in my life. I didn't want to be alone anymore, and I wanted to be noticed and not be invisible. I've gone to a random person that's older than me, and I told them a fake rumor, and I said that I killed my sister with the piano wire. They believed me by the serious look in my eyes, and when I looked into their eyes, I saw fear, and that made me feel powerful inside. The fake rumor that I made had spread across school, and the girls at school would fear me and would scream when I gave them an evil eye. Later on during school, the school bullies soon became my friends. While hanging out with them, friends, we never hurted anyone physically, but we only hurted others emotionally. This one day I said to my friends that I don't care whether I lived or died, and that I'm going through so much pain on the inside. The response I got was shocking for me to hear. It said, if you don't want to live anymore, then run into the middle of the street and get hit by that car. And I did just that. I saw a silver-colored van coming down the road, and I ran towards the road, and I lost my courage and stopped at the curb. I turned to look behind me, and there was no care in my friend's eyes. I had thoughts of death once again. I was scared to be at home. I was alone and felt no care. I soon didn't feel any pain anymore. I didn't feel any emotions at all. I stopped caring for others and wished that everyone around me would disappear. Being alone, scared, and with no care can take away a person's heart and soul. The only thing that I felt going through this was my body felt cold on the inside every day and acted like that nothing around me existed. 2 more years later, at the age of 12, my parents got into a divorce. My brother was kicked out to live on his own with a friend. My sister and I moved with our mom to another town. Since you know about my brother, let me tell you a little bit about my family and how I somewhat got along with my family. I'm probably sure you would like to know a little bit about my sister first, so okay, I'll tell you. My sister was the kind of person that teases me and makes fun of me sometimes, and would put me down. Now and then we'd have our brother and sister moments, doing some things together, like go to parks or to fairs together, but she was never a person that I could talk to about anything. My dad was a strict person towards us kids, but yet he was always fair, but he was very strict. Around my dad, if I'd do anything wrong, I would always lie my way out of things and not get into any trouble. My mom was a person I could never talk important things to. Anything that I would say to her, she would give me a blank look, trying to act like she's listening, but the words would come in one ear and out the other. Both of my parents had something in common, though, and that was depression. After the divorce, my dad attempted to hurt himself or kill himself with the exhaust from a car. Arguments with my mom got really bad to a point where she would hurt herself by slapping herself or hitting her head against a wall. The kind of arguments I had with her was mainly about how she acts when I talk to her about my own feelings or the depression that I'm going through. The first word she says to me when I talk to her about my feelings is, "Are you saying that I'm a bad mother?" Hearing them words from her would always bring me down and would make my depression worse. After the divorce, my dad never called me or my sister unless we called him. Pretty much I didn't really have much of a family after the divorce. Sometimes abuse in a family is not the only thing that changes a person. Also being hurt mentally can hurt a person even more than abuse. Abuse leaves bruises that tend to fade, but emotions, being hurt emotionally, are like scars that would last a lifetime.